You know, just about everybody knows about the in-harness Magdraft right now. It's won tournaments across the country. It's gained a lot of popularity. The fish don't have to expend a lot of energy to chase it down, and they absolutely crush this thing. And it's probably one of the best swim baits to target that 0 to 10 foot zone. Open water, skipping docks, clear docks, fishing over the tops of grass, stuff of that nature. But what do you do when you're faced with heavy cover conditions? You still want to utilize the Magdraft, but they're out of the range. This is where this freestyle really comes into play. Gives you the opportunity to rig it any way you want. You can put it on a jig head like I have here. This setup enables you to make super long casts, bombing casts, get it down and maintain bottom depth. You're able to trace the bottom efficiently, and with that open hook, your hookup ratio is fantastic. This type of deal sets up perfect right now. It's a spawning cove that comes out to these bigger isolated rock piles and islands. You got a southwest wind blowing into it, so you're gonna have bait being pushed up into here. This sets up phenomenal for what you're looking for. Gives everything those largemouth and smallmouth need. They can go back in there, spawn, do their thing, back out to either one of these points or sit on these big rock piles out in these deeper breaks. This is a heavy 1 ounce jig head on this Magdraft. I just sliced a small section of the nose off to get this flush, right? It's a 1 ounce bait. We're out here in 22 to 30 feet of water on a break. Make bombing casts into the wind, let it pendulum down on a slack line. Once you see that belly in the line slack out, pop it, and a nice slow retrieve. So we're just coming out of this little cove here, little rock pile on this island. It's a killer little deal, has a real deep, sharp break from it. The shoal inside the middle of this cove is up in that 7 to 8 feet, and it sheerly drops off to that 25 foot. I was just bouncing this down the rocks. Oh my God, it's got it good. Bouncing this down the rocks, and she smoked it. You can swim it high in the water column, and I catch a lot of fish like that, but that's primarily when they're up, actively feeding on schools of bait. You have bait in the area, and the bait's 10 foot over 30. Count that swim bait down, 8 seconds, try and keep it a foot or two above their heads, and slowly reel it in. You know, those fish like feeding upwards when they're ganged up on bait, especially in this clear water. They don't use their lateral line, not nearly as much as a fish in a shallow, weedy lake. Everything's visual. They've honed those hunting skills, I promise you. And they'll track this bait a long, long way. Just has drawing power. You see them come out of docks after it. You'll see them following it in crystal clear water when you're up shallow on the shoals. You'll see them follow it for 50, 60, 70 feet. The only time I do anything different to it is when I get close to the boat and I think it's gonna run out. You know, at that point, he has to bite it or leave it anyway. So the only thing I'll do is maybe just give it a pull, speed that tail up, make it erratically swim towards me, give it a little twitch, something, just try and trigger that bite. Cool thing about this bait is the versatility. Now we're gonna rig it up on a weighted swim bait hook. Come back in here, start skipping some docks, see if we have any laydowns. Things are looking pretty promising. There's a bunch of wood down here, a bunch of docks, big shadow lines. We're gonna see if we can just slow roll this deal and try and hook up with a couple good ones around these docks. It's nice to have the versatility to be able to fish this out in 30, 35 feet of water and then be able to pick another rod up with the same exact bait that you know they're eating and work docks in 2 to 10 feet. You just have to figure out which docks they're gonna be on. Are they on individual long steel toothpick docks? You know, seasonal docks that they pull out every winter? Are they on the hard stuff? Meaning crib docks? Are they on float and pontoon docks? You know, there's so many different variables. The boat houses. And once you get dialed in, you can just run that pattern throughout the lake. And this lake for here has thousands and thousands of docks. Usually here, the crib styles offer a whole lot more cover and a full ecosystem because they have these giant rock piles under them. A lot of times they'll have slats in them as they crisscross the timbers, and it leaves gaps and some of it rots out, and you'll have crawfish that are up in them rocks real good. You'll have crappie, perch, and sunnies moving in and out of those cribs, and you can get some big fish hanging around there. They know everything they need is right there for the season. I mean, it's something too that I throw regardless of it's dead slick flat or gassing. You know, right now we got a nice breeze. This is fantastic. It's really what you're looking for. It's about 5 to 10. You know, that little breeze is gonna put chop on the water. It's gonna break up the bait's profile, and it's gonna position those fish. You know, oftentimes with this big swim bait, people think you cover a lot of water and just blindly cast it, and yeah, you get bit like that. But you're really looking for target-oriented fish, whether they're set up on docks, on certain boulders, off a rock slide, little secondary points. Are they on isolated grass clumps off the main edge? You know, the biggest fish will often be on that key little structure. And this is the bait that'll just target those better than average fish consistently. But when you get around targets and you can make accurate casts, paralleling bluff walls, paralleling the sides of docks, skipping way back under them, getting into heavy cover and crawling that through, periodically making contact with those branches as it's coming through, will really cause some vicious, vicious strikes. You know, swim baits is almost a year-round deal. You know, I throw them from right after ice out all the way until, you know, that water hits 40 degrees. You know, regardless if you're gonna fish the harness version or the freestyle, the retrieve is so critical. It's a super slow to moderate retrieve. When you start to feel it, you'll feel that head shake, that tail thump. I mean, it draws some crazy strikes. When you feel that all working together, then you know you've got the right retrieve speed. So focus on that. You think in the warmer weather you want to speed it up, it's not. You're gonna foul the bait, it's gonna roll. What makes this bait so special is that head shake and that tail thump. You want that combination going at all times. You know, I've played with a lot of different hooks and jig heads on the market, and I've really kind of settled on 2 different types. One on the jig head is just a solid, stout, believe it or not, a stout 5.0 to 7.0 hook. Thick gauge, super sharp. That way, because you're rubbing rocks a lot, you're gonna need to resharpen this from time to time, carry a file, mend that point, and you're good to go. On the freestyle one rigged with the swim bait hook, an 8.0. You know, I rigged that up on an 8.0. I found that to be the best hookup ratio. It fits the bait right. It swims better than any other size I've played with. And that's it. On that jig head, you just want one with a big gap. On that 5.0 or 7.0 hook, it's a big piece of plastic. You need a big gap on it to get positive penetration. Oftentimes you're catching some really big fish doing this. You're throwing 20-pound line. That heavier gauge hook, you really need that 20-pound line, and you have to set on them. Set on them and start cranking as fast as you can. It's a single hook, so you're more than likely not gonna lose them unless they got it weird. Like yesterday we had a couple big ones taco it, where they're balled up the bait. They'll come up from behind and actually get it in their mouth weird, or foul the bait. They'll push the tail around the hook when you go to set on them. Oh, happens, man. So when you feel that, I mean, you feel that bite, you really have to set into them. You jack them like you're setting the hook on a jig. Hit them hard, hit them fast, and keep them coming. It's not a finesse deal at all. You know, even in this ultra clear water, you can power fish, and this is power fishing. Subtle, but make no mistake about it, it's power fishing. You know, we got a nice wind blowing right in our face, and that's kind of the deal. You want to position your boat where you can cast upwind and bring it with the current. It's a natural way for these fish to set up. You know, the key things on these bluff walls is those little rock outcroppings that make small little underwater points that you don't see either. They cause current breaks. It gives the fish an ambush point, and that's all they need. So I'm making a cast upwind, giving it a second or two to fall, slowly creeping that along. Like I said, you just want to feel that head shake and that body roll. Don't get in a hurry to finish that cast out either. They'll hit it right at the boat sometimes. They'll come from under the boat, they'll come from the side, a position you're not even looking at to blast this thing. You know, they're opportunistic feeders, and they see something like this, a big meal that they don't have to spend a lot of energy, and they just happen to be in a position that you weren't set up on. You missed him the first, second time he was following and swam off. And then all of a sudden here comes a second cast and it's coming by, they'll come up and choke that bait. So finish your cast out. That's huge. I've caught a lot of fish real close to the boat. And you don't play them. You're gonna lose some, but you try and keep them in the water and play them, you're gonna lose more than you will if you just swing them. So if he hits the boat, it's stick him right up in. Don't worry about breaking your line. That's why that 20-pound test is super critical. You know, 7.2 to 7.6 rod. This happens to be a 7.2. You want a medium heavy to heavy action rod. You want something that's pretty sensitive, because the bites, believe it or not, even on that 6-inch bait can be subtle. You would think it'd be a bone jarring strike, and sometimes it is, but a lot of times you just lose the bait or it's a tick. And that's where that sensitive tip comes in.